Okay, perfect. Awesome, everyone. Okay, all right. Thank you all so much for stopping by here today. So just to kind of reiterate, of course, the purpose of this meeting was to go over the final project. So um, the in the module there, let me also show you all really quickly because I have recorded these types of sessions before. So um, and I will also I'm also going to record this one and then post this one. I know I needed to do that for the other one that we did before. Um, Let me just go ahead and just kind of click out everything because I'm here on my work computer. So let me share my screen really quickly so that way you all can also see where that is here. So let me go back to Blackboard here, so that way you all can see where it's located. And regard whether it's the federal or the Texas, it should still be in the same location because the Blackboard classes are pretty much they're pretty much aligned the same way. So let me just share my screen really quickly. Um, so y'all should be able to see here in the folder where it says signature assignment final project. Um, if you scroll on down here, let's see, there should be, wait, you know what? Okay. No, you know what? I'm sorry, there isn't that lecture video. I'm very sorry about that. Okay. Well, that's fine. I'm just gonna go ahead and upload this one then. Yeah, because I think it was for the Texas government that I think there was one. So that's fine. I'll just go ahead and upload this one and then it'll be in that section here. Okay, so my bad. I'm so sorry about that. I thought it was there. Okay, and then other things that I also wanted to talk about. So obviously, of course, the main points we're going to talk about here tonight is about the final project, because I know you all have a lot of questions about it. Which let me mention also first off that the final project itself is not really all that difficult in terms of like it's not a research paper. It's not a research paper. It's not like 10, 15 pages. I don't know if any of y'all had to do stuff like that in other classes. I hope not, because sometimes some professors at SCC can get a little bit carried away with the assignments that they assign. I've heard of situations where, like, and again, this is every professor has the right to have their class how they see fit. That's part of academic freedom. Um, but I don't assign 15, 20-page research papers because I've been in grad school classes where they don't even assign that. So, sometimes, some STC professors, they'll go and assign like really. So hopefully you all haven't had to go through that. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that, and if you have, I'm sorry about that. Again, like I said, every professor is different in terms of what they assign. Excuse me. But I don't do that. So I'm not going to assign like this really long research paper or anything like that. But the research project, that's what I call it. I call it like a research project or research essay because it does have research elements, but it's nowhere near as much as like a research paper. But again, we're going to go over those specifics here tonight. But a couple other things also that I wanted to mention. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was on the same page about this. Is had you all had a chance to read the announcement I posted yesterday about the late assignments? Because I know some students have reached out to me about that. So in the announcement, I explained what the process is going to be. So does everyone understand how that works? That to basically answer the question about late submissions is that yes, that I will accept late assignments. However, you're going to need to complete this week's assignments first because I don't want for there to be a situation where, let's say, you get behind in this week's assignments because you caught up with the assignments that you missed for the first 2 weeks. So what you need to do is you need to complete the ones that are still not late yet. Complete those first, and that also goes for the for the fourth unit assignments as well. So please make sure that if, like, let's say you missed the first discussion, you have to complete discussions 3 and 4 first before you go back and then complete the first discussion. Because, like I said, I don't want for you to be late on discussions 3 and 4. So does that make sense? That yes, you can submit late assignments, but you have to get the on-time assignments first. Okay, so that's one aspect of that procedure that I explained in the in the Blackboard announcement. Another aspect of that is also that if you're going like for whatever late assignment that you submit, you have to let me know. You have to send me either a Blackboard message, which I do also need to mention that there's still a few students that are still not following the procedure. Remember that you have to click on the box that says do not, I'm sorry, the box that says send an email copy to recipients. So if you have sent a Blackboard message and you haven't gotten a response, then it's probably because you haven't submitted it correctly. So please make sure that you submit it correctly, because again, that's the policy that we have in our class. I've explained that several times, that it's because I need to have that documentation, and also because that sends me an alert. So that if, let's say, I'm on Blackboard and I'm not looking for Blackboard messages, I'll get that alert in my email. So that way that directs me to then go look at the Blackboard message and respond. So there is a benefit to doing it that way. That's why I wish the Blackboard would just default to just making it to where it sends me an email. But so again, just make sure that you please, follow with those instructions. But anyway, going back to what I was saying about okay. So if you submit an assignment that's late, Blackboard does not send me a notification saying, hey, this assignment that was due 2 weeks ago, now someone has submitted it. No, Blackboard does not send me a notification. Blackboard also does not change the grade. So like, let's say you missed the first test and then you went and completed it. Blackboard also does not change the grade to the new grade. It still leaves it as a 0. So there's a lot of things that I have to go manually to go change, because Blackboard doesn't update those things automatically. I wish they would, but they don't. So that's why if there is an assignment that you have submitted that was late and was already marked as a 0, then you have to either email me or Blackboard message me letting me know that you completed it. So that way, then I can go back and update that grade. So does that also make sense in terms, because I think I put that in the announcement as well. So please let me know if all of this makes sense so far, that for the to make sure that you complete your on-time assignments first. So that's also another reason why, if you've noticed in the calendar for our class, that the first so the semester is 4 weeks. I'm sorry, I take that back. The semester is 5 weeks, but we have 4 units, right? So notice how we've done a unit per week. So that last week is an open week to where you can submit your final project as well as also the final exam, but also to catch up on late assignments. So that's when I would recommend for y'all to do that, is to use that last week, to focus on catching up on the assignments as well here. Let's see. The other thing also in regard, other thing. So I also mentioned in the announcement that because we have the Juneteenth holiday tomorrow, I don't know if y'all were aware of that tomorrow we have the national holiday Juneteenth, which I think if you've read in chapter 1 in Texas government, so for the Texas government students, you probably now know about Juneteenth, right? Because that is covered in chapter 1, right? The story basically is where that, just to kind of give a brief summary, that Juneteenth, and of course Juneteenth is a national holiday, but it started in Texas, right? That it started in Galveston a couple of weeks after the Confederacy surrendered, right? After Lee surrendered to Grant at Appomattox House, it took a few weeks for the news of the Confederacy surrender to then make it all across to the Confederacy, right? So that's why it took a couple of weeks for word to come out to where Galveston, to where now the Emancipation Proclamation, which was passed in 1863 by Abraham Lincoln, in terms of the executive order there, that now was going to be, put into effect. But of course, they couldn't do that because, of course, the states were still being rebelled against, right? So they had to go and try to now enforce that the slaves were now free. So that's basically the story of Juneteenth here, where it celebrates the official the official freeing of the slaves here. And so, of course, Juneteenth now has become a national holiday. I know I'm just giving you just the brief overview of that. Let's see. Priscilla says, for the assignments that are late, do you take off? Okay, so yes, there is going to be some late penalties here, unless, of course, there is a legit excuse. So if you do have an excuse, let me know, and then we'll work on that. Okay, well, I will try to work with you all on that. Okay, because I do understand that the semester is very compact. It's a 5-week semester. I understand it's very difficult. I was explaining to another student that I met with a couple of days ago that I was going to take a grad school class myself in Laredo, and I decided not to do it because that just was not going to be enough time. And yeah, look, there's no way I could have done it, because I've had a lot of meetings I've had to go to, especially like I had a meeting earlier today. I think I posted an announcement that I had a meeting earlier today, so we needed to move like office hours and all that stuff. So I've been very busy with a lot of SEC stuff. So it just would have been impossible for me to have done that class in Laredo. So I do understand that the semesters can be very difficult. So just let me know like what's going on, and then we'll see what we can do about that. Okay. So I definitely will help you out and work with you all, because I want for y'all to get the best grade possible. But at the same time, of course, I want for y'all to also earn that grade. So just let me know if something came up, if there was some, work issue, or, something going on at home or something like that. Just be honest with me in terms of like what was going on, and I won't judge you or anything like that. Like, I've been judged when it comes to like things that have come up, with me needing more time with assignments in my own classes. Like I've been late on assignments myself, and I've been judged for that. So I would never judge you all for that as well, because I know what that feels like to be judged and to be made to feel like as if I'm irresponsible, or I don't know what I'm doing, I don't have good time management. I know what it's like to be made to feel that way. So I wouldn't want to do that to you all as well. Um, but yeah, just let me know what's going on, and we'll work something out for sure. That's also a good reason why I would also recommend for y'all to do the extra credit as well. So if let's say maybe you're late on some assignments, do those extra credit assignments as well. So we've got the study guides, we've got the documentaries. We also are going to have, I think next week is when the evaluations start for the summer classes. So that's also a very easy way to get a good extra credit grade. And the way that works is where you complete the evaluation for the class, and then like let me ask you all, have any of y'all done evaluations for other like classes before? Like, are you all familiar with the program where I think some of y'all have done those before, right? So okay, so Priscilla, no. Okay, Alex says yes. Okay, so some of y'all have, right? So I do have the link. Let me share my screen here so that way I can show you all really quickly. So because if you go over here, past signature assignment, where it goes to STC student evaluations, if you click on the link, that takes you to where you can log in, and then of course you log into your credentials, you with your credentials, and then it should show you the list of the classes. So I don't know if the evaluations for summer one are ready. If they are, then you can already go and start doing that. I'm just not sure. I'm assuming they'll be ready by next week because they kind of have to, because next week we're already going to be almost done here. But the point that I wanted to us to make here is what you do again is you go here, you log in there, and then it should take you to like a listing of your classes, and then you can start filling out the evaluation, and then what you'll do is after you finish the evaluation for our class, whether government 23 or 5 or 23 or 6, then it's going to give you some sort of confirmation page, like something along the lines like, oh, you've successfully submitted, the evaluation for government 23 or 5 or whatever. All you have to do is then take a screenshot of that confirmation page, and then let me go back over here to Blackboard over here, because let me share the screen again here really quickly. Because then what you'll do is if you go back over here to the oh, I'm sorry, I guess I went to the wrong one here. If you go back here, then it'll take you to the submission. So that's where you would just submit the screenshot. And that's going to be a very easy 100, because there's really nothing to grade other than you submitting it, right? Just you submitting the screenshot is enough, right? So that's what you're going to. So because there's nothing to grade, because you're just getting extra credit based on you submitting that extra credit. I'm sorry, you submitting that evaluation, then that's what your grade is going to be. So that's where you would do that. So like I said, I don't know if it's live yet. I haven't gotten any emails, because usually STC will send us emails like faculty evaluations are now live, so please let your students know. So I have not gotten any emails like that. So, but again, I'm assuming that I should get those by next week, because it's already going to be like 2 weeks left in the semester. So yeah, they have to do it already by next week. I mean, that's certainly, I don't think 1 week during finals week is enough time for that. So I don't know if they have or not, but I'm just saying that they'd be on the lookout for that if they do. And so and I will also post an announcement once I get those emails from STC explaining that, okay, yeah, the evaluations are now ready. So you all can go in and do the evaluation. So, okay. Let me just double check on the announcement just to make sure that I'm not missing anything. So we went over that. We went over the other thing, that's right. That because I was going to make an argument. Why did I bring up Juneteenth? Well, I brought up Juneteenth because I needed to explain to y'all that because of Juneteenth and also because Father's Day is this Sunday, I have now moved the due dates for the assignments for this week as well as next week here, um, because of the fact that I don't. It's not right for, and I'll tell any professor this. It's not right for professors to be assigning stuff on Sunday when there's like a holiday, like whether it's Father's Day, Mother's Day, um, Easter, something like that. Like I've even pushed assignments back like for the Super Bowl Sunday or like Valentine's Day. Those are not technically holidays, but I know that people are having, because I know that people are like, that's family time. People are out doing things, and those are fun days, right? So I really don't think it's appropriate for professors to be assigning work on those days. So I try to do my best to not assign stuff. I did completely miss this one because in the summer it's really hard to push stuff back because of we only have 5 weeks. So I definitely so again I'm sorry that I missed that, but I'm trying to make up for that now. So for the quizzes and the tests, those are not going to be due on Sunday. Those are going to be due on Tuesday. Same thing for next week. Now, the only thing that I do ask for y'all to do is to please do the discussion, the one that please do the discussion for Unit 3. Please try to do that one by today, only because since the discussion has two due dates, I really can't push. I wish I could have pushed that to Tuesday, but I can't push that because discussions have two due dates, like I explained when we had the first meeting, because I was explaining that we need to have two separate due dates because then there's not going to be any discussion going on if everyone just waits till the last day. So that one I couldn't really move. So please, that's the only thing I guess you all need to do just this week is just do that one, and then the other stuff is going to be due like next Tuesday, like for quizzes and stuff like that. Yeah, so that way y'all can enjoy your Father's Day and also like for just this whole weekend. But anyway, so okay. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. All right. So anyway, but does anyone have any questions on any of that? I think that's pretty much everything that I need to cover within the um I think so, right? I think that's everything that I think I needed to cover within the announcement, right? Was there anything else that you all had questions on before we get into like the signature assignment, which is what you all that's the important thing that you all came for. But was there anything else that I could answer questions for y'all? Was there anything else that y'all needed or no?
Okay, just to
Let's see,
make
Priscilla,
it
go ahead.
clear, for assignment 3 is going to be this Tuesday, correct? The due date.
I don't think I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold
Oh,
on.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was on mute.
Oh,
Okay, continue. Go ahead. Now I can hear you. I'm sorry.
okay, just to make it clear, for assignment 3 is going to be due this Tuesday on the 23rd, correct?
Um, are you talking about? So which assignment
For
are you?
for the quizzes that we need to take on
Oh, yes,
Sunday,
ma'am.
it's going to be moved to Tuesday, correct?
That
On
is
the
correct.
23rd?
That is correct. Yes, yes. The quizzes
Okay, how
and the
about,
third test.
and then for the fourth quizzes,
That also is going to be moved to the next Tuesday because
the following Tuesday.
I didn't want for y'all to have to do like two sets of quizzes less than a week apart. So that's why I moved that one also. I mean, we're already at the end of we're getting to the end of the semester, so it really doesn't matter. Like, might as well give you all that extra time. So yeah, so the quizzes for the fourth unit are going to be due on the 30th of June instead of the 28th. So I think those due dates have already been changed in Blackboard. I went in and I made those changes. If there's some that because sometimes Blackboard still glitches up. But yeah, just note that for the next that there's not going to be anything due on Sunday anymore. I don't think, right? Yeah, that would mean that everything is yeah. So it's gonna we're moving it next Tuesday and then the following Tuesday. The following Tuesday, of course, is already finals week. So, but yes, all that will be moved. So, like I said, the only thing that still is going to be on Thursday is just the initial post, which I think that's okay, right? I don't think that would really. I think y'all can do that, right? I think that's definitely something that y'all could definitely do. So, and like I said, just explaining because of the fact that because of the way the nature of the discussions are structured, like you can't do three posts in one day because then I mean unless you do it early, but you can't do the three posts on the due date because then you didn't discuss, right? Like it's supposed to generate the discussion. So, but okay. Anybody else have any other questions in regards to anything that we talked about right now? Like when it comes to due dates, that late assignments can be submitted, but you have to do the the ones that are due first, and also that you need to let me know when a late submission has been submitted, so that way I can then go and grade it. I will also during finals week, what I also do is I go through every single student to make sure that I didn't miss anything. But because I have 100 students this semester, because I'm teaching 4 classes, I do need some assistance from you all to please let me know, so that that way, like if you notice that you've submitted it and I haven't graded it yet, then yeah, you can let me know. And so that way I'll go and because when you do that, I will usually then go and grade it right then and there, just so that I don't forget. But sometimes things might come up, right? Sometimes, I might have like a family emergency, like I explained, I had to go help my mom in preparation for all that rain that we got. So she needed help like with cutting all this grass. That was the family emergency I needed to go to. I needed to take care of that before all, because you all saw how much rain we got. Like, I mean, we got like a bunch of rain and it's already moved on over to Alabama. Like it's been like we got a bunch of rain earlier in this week. So that was something I needed to take care of. Because my mother's, she's almost 70. She shouldn't be doing that. So I do that for her, as well as pay all of her bills at her house, because I mean she's already retired, so I definitely want to do that for her, for all the help that she's helped me. But anyway, so like with that being said, like I just yeah, so I just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page when it comes to that, in terms of like those procedures. And okay, so I guess we're good. Okay, so let's go to what we the I guess you could say the main event or the feature presentation, which I haven't watched a movie in forever. I definitely need to take some time for that. Uh, let's see. So let me go ahead and open up the Word documents here. So there's a lot of. Hold on. Let me just close out all this because there's a lot of stuff that I've been working on, like some administrative documents that I don't want like to show up here on the share here. So let me just make sure that I close all this off really quickly. So give me just a moment. Hold on. It's saying, do you want to save? No, like these are just hold on, I'm sorry. Let me go to this really quickly. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm closing this off here. Okay, so now let me go ahead and open these again. Because there's 4 documents that we're going to kind of go back and forth here. Um, but it's fine because the yes, the assignment is a little bit different between government 2305 and 2306, but I didn't want to have a separate meeting for 2305 and 2306 because that's just a lot of work and we could just kind of go back and forth between them. So I figured that's fine. Okay. So let me just make sure that they are aligned correctly. Let me just, yeah, hold on. Let me just make sure that, because I did have them open, but then well, I guess it doesn't let me move it, but that's fine. That's okay. Okay. All right. So, okay. Well, let me ask you all this question. Okay. Please put in the chat whether you are in government 2305 or 2306, because let me see. I want to see, because maybe it's only people from 23. Okay. Is there? Okay. There is. Because I was gonna say like, well, if everyone's from 2306, then I don't have to talk about 2305. But no, there are some 2305 people. Okay, all right, that's fine. No worries, no worries, that's fine. I'll just kind of go back and forth here. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so okay, like I said, we're gonna go back and forth here between 2305 and 2306. But again, the assignment is pretty much the same. So to kind of summarize what this assignment is basically you are going to be writing a mock letter. Okay, so it's not an actual letter that you're going to send off. Now, you can send it off if you want to. I've had students do that. But if you do send it off, please don't say that it's because I'm making you, because that's not like, this is not supposed to be like I'm not like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to get in trouble. Like, oh, like that professor, he's making his students, uh, go and like, and contact Congress or the governor or anything, like, no, this is just to simulate if you were a concerned citizen and you had a specific constitutional issue that you felt really strongly about and you wanted to try to make your voice heard as is allowed, and I would say even encouraged within our First Amendment right to redress grievances and to petition our government. I mean, that is a very important right that we have in this country. So this is meant to simulate that. And so the purpose of this, of course, is, as I'm going to scroll down here, is to satisfy these course learning outcomes and the student learning outcomes, right? So some of this should sound familiar to her, right? Like if you're in government 2305, talking about civil liberties, civil rights, discussing where is it, political parties over here, the Bill of Rights as well, branch of government, your separation of powers, checks and balances, all that stuff. So that should be familiar to you all if you're in 2305 or in 2306. Of course, it would be like, the plural executive with the governorship. And there is a lot of crossover between government 2305 and 2306 because, again, in both classes, you learn about political parties. The difference is that in government 2306, the focus on political parties is more so at the state and local level, which I actually like that more because in 2305, political parties is just kind of looked at the national level. But there is a lot of moving and shaking within state and local and within state political parties, and then the local chapters, as I like to call it, right? Like I used to be a member of the Hidalgo County Democrat Party, so I do have a lot of background in terms of how parties operate at the local level. So I do like the Texas government goes more into detail on that than federal government. But anyway, so anyway, but to kind of backtrack, so and we're going to go through all these as well here. So the point of this is to measure how well that you understand the student learning outcomes. So let me kind of also go down here. So yeah, see how like for federal government, explain the origin and development of the constitutional democracy in the United States, knowledge of the federal system, separation of powers, checks and balances, legislative, executive, judicial branches, public opinion, interest groups, political parties, elections. So again, you're learning this, and then let me go over here to 2306, um, and you'll see that we'll take a look at the SLOs here, right? So then explain the origin and development of the Texas Constitution, demonstrate state and local political systems and the relationship with the federal government. Again, separation of powers, checks and balances again, but again, how it relates to, here in Texas, the legislative, executive, judicial branches of Texas. So you see how like all of this is very similar, right? The only major difference is that in 2306, it's obviously Texas focused. So why am I showing you the SLOs here? Because this final project is a very effective method that I have used in my classes probably for about. So I didn't come up with this assignment in the interest of transparency. I got this from another college that I used to work at, and I really liked it. So I figured, you know what? Like, I'm going to use this in my own classes because we do have to measure we do have to measure whether students are satisfying these the SLOs over here, because that is, we're supposed to do that. We are required by the state to ensure that it's not enough just to learn the material, but that you also have to apply it here, right? You have to be able to, like I said, demonstrate state and local political systems, right? It's not enough just to know about it, but you also have to demonstrate your knowledge about it. And so, yes, you do that within the discussions. You also do that within, the other assignments that we have. But this is a good assignment because this is the easiest way for me to be able to measure it, right? Yes, it can be measured in other ways, but this is a way that encapsulates all of this. So, have you all heard of a capstone project or a capstone class? Have you all heard of the term capstone before? You probably will learn about it if, let's say, some of y'all move on maybe to go and complete your bachelor's degree. So I don't know if SCC has capstone like in the associate's degrees. I know SCC has a couple of bachelor's degrees. So that's probably more so like for bachelor's degrees. You probably have that, where a capstone course or a capstone project is where you take everything that you learned within a specific class or within a specific degree, and then you apply it within that last class or something like that, right? It's kind of also similar, like in grad school we have comprehensive exams. That's a capstone project right there, because we're supposed to show that, at the end of our studies within the master's program, did we learn what we were supposed to learn? Did we learn about, you know, so like for like in my situation, like in my case, like political science, right? Did I learn about the importance of the Supreme Courts within American government? Did I learn about um, why presidents have the ability to make executive orders, and why is it that foreign policy is, you know, has become more and more part of the executive branch. I mean, you've seen this play out like with what's been going on with Iran. And of course, we just had the deal that it was agreed to by the United States and Iran and all that stuff. So again, did was I able to demonstrate deep knowledge about American politics and American government, at the end of my master's, program, right? So that's kind of like what we have here, right? That this project is going to be able to allow for me to see whether you were able to learn all of these SLOs. Okay. So that's kind of the setup in terms of why we have it. Now let's get into what the actual assignment is. So let me go to federal, and then I'll come back to Texas here. Okay, so for federal, and both, like I said, both of them are the same. You're going to write a mock letter. For federal, you're going to write to any of the two sitting U.S. Senators that represent Texas. Okay, so that would be either Ted Cruz or John Cornyn. John Cornyn's on his way out because he lost the primary to Ken Paxton, and so we'll see who the new. So there is going to be a new senator, right? Because I don't think Cornyn's going to run as an independent. I don't think so. So I think some of y'all are aware of that, right? That we had that runoff that we had a couple of weeks ago where Cornyn lost to Ken Paxton. So now in Texas in November, we're going to have that senatorial race between Ken Paxton on the Republican side and then Democrat James Tallarico. I think some of y'all have heard of him, right? So that name should sound a little bit familiar to y'all. So, but for now, the reason why I say that is because, like I said, we're going to have a new senator in Texas. But for now, Cornyn is still going to finish out his term. Until the end of this year, and then the new Congress will get sworn in January of next year. So he is still someone that you could still write to. So it could be either of those two senators, or it could be any congressional House member that represents Texas. So um, I do like to recommend, it doesn't have to be done this way, but I do like to recommend that if you are in Government 2305 and if you're going to write to a House member, I do like to recommend that you write to your local House member. What I mean by that is, who is the House member that you are a constituent of? Of course, a constituent is someone that is a voting member of that district. And so I would recommend that if you wanted to write to a House member, that it would be your own local House member. You do not have to do that, though. I know some students like to write to other House members because they have done research that certain House members are more sympathetic to the specific issue that they want to write about. So that's totally fine. Um, but if, let's say, you're kind of undecided and you just want to write about something general to a member of Congress, I would recommend that it be your local member, because since you're a constituent, they would take your letter a lot more seriously as opposed to someone that lives like in Montana or something like that. Well, what do I care about what someone, they're not in my district, so why should I care about that specific issue? I mean, I'm not saying that they shouldn't care, but again, we're trying to simulate this, right? If you were doing this for real, a letter from a voting constituent is someone that's going to carry a lot more weight, because that's definitely that could have an impact in terms of whether that member of Congress will be able to get reelected in November here, right? Because we have the midterms coming up, right? And so we've got this congressional election coming up. So yeah, it definitely makes sense that they should pay attention. So okay, so that's on federal for 2305. 2306 is pretty much the same, except that you're going to have a larger variety of elected officials that you were going to write to. So for 2306, again, it's the same mock letter, but instead it's going to be to a Texas state legislative leader. So this would be a member of the state legislature, right? So this would be either a Texas state senator or a Texas state representative, a member of the plural executive. So this would be like Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, which they of course are also up for reelection, because not only do we have the congressional election coming up in November, we also have the governor's race coming up. So that of course is going to be between Governor Greg Abbott, the incumbent, and Gina Hinojosa, who is the Democrat nominee for the Democrat side for the to run against to run as a Democrat representative for the governorship, right? So yeah, so this would be very important, for Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, as well as the rest of the pool executive to, this would be a good opportunity to, to try to contact them, So, right. So it could be any of them as the pool executive, like I mentioned. And again, there's other positions like Comptroller of Public Accounts, Commissioner General Land Office, Agriculture Commissioner. Those are also members of the pool executive, as you all are learning within Texas government here, or any local elected official leader. So this could be so it says here at the county or the local level. So for county, this would be like your county judge, depending on where you live. That'll determine who your county judge would be. Richard Cortez, of course, is the county judge for Hidalgo County. Of course, also you can also be your county commissioners, depending on where you live. That also determines who your county commissioners would be. So I live in district number 3 in Hidalgo County. So Ever Villarreal is my county commissioner. So if I was, that would be who I would write to. But of course, you could also go with the local level. So this would be like your mayor. So this would be like, depending again what city you live in, that could be your mayor, your city council member, or you could even go even to more local level that you could write to like the school board, right? You could write to your local school. You could even write to to the STC school board. I don't know if y'all knew that STC also had a board of trustees. You could also write to them as well, right? So if maybe there's maybe some of y'all might have an issue with, I don't know, like maybe the tuition is too high or something like that. Maybe you could write to the STC board or something like that. I'm just giving you all some ideas in terms of what who you might want to write to. Now, in both of these, of course, you are going to pick a specific issue that you are concerned about, right? So for Government 2305, of course, that would be more of a federal issue. In Government 2306, that's more of a state or local issue. Now, I do want to mention it, and as we go through over here, and again, don't be too concerned about the verbiage here where it says the letter of concern will demonstrate your ability to effectively communicate by developing and writing an executive summary that identifies, integrates, critically analyzes. Again, you're going to be doing that, through what you're going to be writing. So don't really get spooked out by the terminology here. But I do need to also again mention that this is going to require some outside research. So it's not enough just to read through the textbook and then write your letter. You are going to have to look up you are going to have to do some outside research. Now, I would recommend probably at least 2 articles. And I'm not saying like journal articles. I'm saying like news articles. So let me also give you all a little bit of some hints here. Like for Government 2306, definitely look up the Texas Tribune. I think I mentioned that in the first meeting, right? Have for those of y'all who are in 2306, have y'all had a chance to look up the Texas Tribune? Like y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Like if y'all looked at I have a bunch of stuff on the Texas Tribune in the class, right? In the modules. Uh Definitely I would recommend look up articles within the Texas Tribune, because not only is it a very good newspaper here in Texas, but it's free. Unlike the Austin American Statesman or the Dallas Morning News, where you have to pay a paywall, Texas Tribune is completely free. So you can get your articles there. You don't have to worry about paywall, right? For federal government, again, you could look up some of the major news organizations. I don't think they have paywalls. At least I know like the Washington Post and the New York Times does, but the regular news networks, I don't think they have paywalls, or at least they haven't instituted them yet. I don't think, which hopefully they don't, because I know that's been a big issue. Like it's a big reason why I don't read as much news as I used to, because everything has gone to paywall, and so I'm not going to be subscribing for all these different newspapers and stuff like that. That's just too many. But anyway, I just want to give you all some ideas, especially like for Texas government. Um, okay, so then what I do, this is probably the most important thing that we do need to go over really quickly, which is the questions 1 through 8 and also the rubric here. So what I would also recommend for you all to do is, when you all are working on this, to definitely have this paper, this document, as well as the rubric here. Let me go ahead and go to the rubric really quickly, to also have the rubric handy with you all. So either you print it or you have it like on another, like let's say maybe you were working on a laptop, or you have another like a tablet or something like that. What I'm trying to say is that have these 2 documents with you while you all are working on this, because what you're going to do is you're going to check off, because this is what's going to be used to grade you all's signature assignment final project here. is I'm going to be looking for, and again, this should sound familiar, right? Because we went over this in the syllabus, right? Critical thinking skills, written communication skills, right? Social responsibility, personal responsibility. Doesn't that sound familiar? Like we went over that on, when we covered the syllabus, right? So I'm going to be looking for this, and then depending on how well you all are able to, to complete these requirements, that's going to determine what grade you're going to get here on this. I think this is a Likert scale, I think. So yeah, so if you can get fours, then you'll get a really good grade, right? And then, of course, then we have the SLOs here, right? Again, explain the origin development of the Texas Constitution, describe state and local political systems. Didn't we just cover this, right? This is also mentioned uh, within the signature assignment document, right? So have this with you as you all are working on this. And let me, of course, also go to federal here, right? Because I don't want for federal to be left out here. But as you can see here, again, very similar, right? Same type of when it comes to the SLOs over here, as well as the course learning outcomes. Again, same thing, right? Critical thinking skills, written communication, social responsibility, personal responsibility. But again, the SLOs are going to be a little bit different and again, they're not that much different. And that's why, like I said, I just wanted to do them together because it's really the same thing. But just keep in mind to have this with you as you're working on this so that you make sure that, okay, so I completed SLO number 4, right? I demonstrated knowledge of the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of the federal government, right? I explained the role of public opinion interest groups and political parties. So I did that here in this section of the letter. So I can mark off number 5 because I already did that. And of course, it's also going to depend on how well you do this, right? If you just barely mention it, then you might get like developing or beginning, right? But if you go into great detail, like you all have been doing in the discussions, then yeah, then you'll get like 3s and 4s here. So, but okay, let me go ahead and go back now um, to this here, right? So, okay. So as you can see here, that a lot of these questions are going to be very similar. In fact, let me see if I can mirror these. Hold on, give me just a moment. Let me stop the share here. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to put them side by side here, so that way we can kind of actually, that's a really good idea. Let me put the documents side by side here, so that way, and you know what? That's probably what I should have done from the start. I should have just had them like this. You'll see what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to move that document over here, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the 2305. So let me go ahead and move this over here. Yeah, that's definitely what I should have done to start with. Sorry about that. I should have kind of mirrored them. And then I'll put the 2305 over here, and then I'll put the 2306 on the other side, or maybe not. Let's see. Now it's not letting me. Hold on, because I don't want to close it. Let me see. Okay. I'm trying to move it here. Hold on. Let's see. I also do this when I study for my notes here. Okay, let's see. Um, Let me just take off the enable editing. Oh, that didn't work. Hold on. Sorry about that. Hold on. I'm trying to make it to where it's like kind of equal in terms of yeah, this is definitely what I should have done. That I should have done this before the meeting started. I'm sorry about that. Because I've actually never done this before where I've done both 2305 and 2306 in the same meeting for the signature assignment. So but it's actually good because that way then that's just one video I have to upload. So I'm sorry, give me just a moment. I'm trying to make it to where it's going to be like I think some of y'all probably already have an idea about what I'm trying to do here. Where it's okay, so let me I'm sorry, it keeps okay, that's fine. I'm just not gonna mess with it anymore. I'll just kind of click back and forth here. Okay. Just make sure that it all can be seen here. Okay, all right. Okay, so let me see if okay. So is this what you all figured I was trying to do here? You see what I did here? This is what I should have just done at the beginning of the class. This is absolutely what I should have done. So that way we can kind of go back and forth here. But okay, that's fine. So let me go ahead and scroll on down here now to where it's let me scroll on down here to where it's gonna get to the 1 through 8. Okay, so we'll just yeah. This is definitely I absolutely should have just done this from the beginning. This would have made it so much easier to understand here. Okay, all right. Okay, so then like I said, and you all can see that it's all it's pretty similar, right? So, okay, which one do we want to do first? 'Cause I do want to give examples for both of these. Okay. Let's see. Because what I wanted to do here is I wanted to also kind of give you all an example. Let's kind of think of some examples for both federal and for Texas here. Okay, let's see. Does anyone have any? Okay, so let me also ask the classic question. Let me stop to share, then we'll go back to sharing. Uh, does anyone have any ideas about what they want to write about so far? Like, has anyone had a chance to think about that or not really? Because I also want to know if anyone needs any help with coming up with some strategies, like or some topics.
I do want to write about Greg Abbott.
Okay, and what
Still,
specifically about Governor
uh,
Abbott did you want to?
um, I haven't researched so too much of it yet, but that's the person I chose for now.
And that's a very good choice, especially considering, like I said, he's running for reelection. So, um, I mean, I know that in semesters past, probably the most common issue that students have addressed to Governor Abbott has been it's usually either a combination of the um, the gun control issue in Texas, especially considering that in Texas, like we have had you know several of these mass shootings and stuff like that. So that's been a popular topic that has been addressed to Governor Abbott. Um, Another one has also been like you know a couple of years ago, of course, when we had the big freeze, and of course we had the power grid that failed. That's another one that also I've seen pretty common. And then another one I've seen has been the border security situation with Operation Lone Star. That's also been a pretty common topic that students have written about in terms of with the with DPS assisting with border patrol and stuff like that. So that's so that's been another one that's also been pretty common. So I'm just giving you just some ideas in terms of what some students have already written about. Um, Another interesting one that also has gotten some attention has been Medicaid expansion or lack of Medicaid expansion in Texas. So that's another one that under the Affordable Care Act, because of the Sebelius case, that originally Medicaid was going to be expanded to all the states, but then the Supreme Court said that no, states did have the right to opt into that, and so Texas has decided not to opt into that, and so that's been another. And I think the book does talk about that. I think in chapter 2 it talks about that. So that's been another one that students have been interested in. So just giving you some ideas there. But I just want to see if anyone had any did anyone else like I just want to see also if anyone had let's see my current is to write to my congressional representative about workforce retention and competition. Okay, that's a very interesting topic. Yes, and that has generated a lot of attention. Because I know that there was I think it was last week. I don't know if you saw the news that came out that Medicaid recipients are going to have to start they're going to have to either be working or trying to to start working again. So I know that I don't know if that's related to what you were writing about, but that's something that came up recently in the news that I saw. um Stephanie said, I'm not sure yet, maybe about the water. Oh, that's another important one. Yes, that's a big one. Yes. Hopefully, because of the rain we've gotten, that could help with Lake Corpus Christi a little bit. But I still think that I still think they're in crisis mode. I think it's going to take a lot more water to get them back to where at least they'll be okay. But yes, that's been in the news a lot, and Governor Abbott has been very vocal about that in terms of having the state come in and basically administer the municipal responsibility when it comes to water. Data centers, yes, that's another good one. Yes, that's also been related to water, right? That because data centers require a lot of water usage, that's been another one that has gotten a lot of attention in Texas. And Governor Abbott has come out. I think that was at the beginning of this week where he came out saying that there needs to be more analysis of data centers and stuff like that. Yes, so the data centers, that's another good one. Yes, exactly. So, um, yeah, these are all very, very important topics and stuff like that that I definitely appreciate you all bringing to our class and all that. And so what I guess I wanted to do really quickly was I wanted to kind of give you all like a little bit of a sample. in terms of kind of walk you all through in terms of like what this would look like if, let's say, like I was working on this. So let me go ahead and share my screen here again, so that way I can kind of show you all like kind of like how this would work. So let me share my screen here really quickly. Okay, so let's kind of go back here. All right, um, so let's see. Which one will we do first? Okay, so then for Texas, let's see. Okay, so okay, well, you know what? I've got an idea. Let's kind of combine this a bit into, because the border security issue is an issue that can be written about both for federal and for Texas, because this is a big time issue that there is vehement disagreement between the federal government. Well, at least historically, there has been between the federal government and the state government. So let me kind of recap this issue a little bit, which again has not been as big of an issue in recent years because of the fact that Trump was reelected, and so he has a much better working relationship with Governor Abbott, of course, because they're of the same political party, as opposed to the deteriorating working relationship that Governor Greg Abbott had with former President Biden. Obviously, of course, Biden being a Democrat. And so, yeah, look some of this up if you're interested. That Governor Abbott has been very critical of President Biden in terms of President Biden's handling of border security. And so, what we mean, of course, by border security, we mean um, how has the federal government handled, like, undocumented immigrants crossing over illegally, right? Or when it comes to drug smuggling, and of course human trafficking would also be part of that, right? So obviously, of course, that is a major responsibility of the border patrol, right, to ensure that that the border is secure, and to ensure that drugs aren't coming over illegally, and also that people are not coming over illegally, right? So that's, of course, the major responsibility that Border Patrol under Department of Homeland Security has, right? That they're under DHS. Of course, and that's, of course, we also have we also have other agencies within DHS, like CBP, Customs Border Protection. Those, of course, are the officers that are there at the points of entry, right? So these are the ones at the bridges. They're the ones who, of course, they wear the black uniforms. Border Patrol wears the greenish uniforms. And then, of course, we also have ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They're the ones that handle like they're the ones that would, of course, as we've seen, right? There's been controversy with, how, the tactics that ICE has used in terms of like trying to apprehend people and bring them on federal criminal charges, right? So that's kind of like what they do. Again, the enforcement of those violations of federal law. But the reason why I guess we can mention this for both of them is because, like I said, that in recent years in Texas, and Governor Abbott has been very vocal about this, and he's made this, probably his top priority, at least in recent years, because he has felt that what happens if the federal government does not do a good enough job of upholding their responsibility to secure the border? Does that mean that the states just kind of throw their hands up and just, not do anything? Or does the state have a responsibility because the state also shares the border? Because again, when you have this border, it's not just a border between the United States and Mexico, right? We're going with the southern border, right? Or the border between the United States and Canada, right? Um, you also have a border between Texas and Tamaulipas or Coahuila or Chihuahua, right? Or like North Dakota with, I think it's, what is it, Alberta, I think is the state, the Canadian province. I could be wrong. I need to brush up on I think I know the provinces like Saskatchewan and Vancouver, but I forget where they border. But anyway, but the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, is border security simply just a national issue where the state has no involvement at all? Or can the states also get involved in it? Because and could local government also get involved in it, right? Because if you've got, people crossing over here, like in South Texas, they're, like I said, they're not just crossing over into the United States, they're also crossing over into Texas, they're also crossing over in Hidalgo County. Again, I'm not trying to pick sides on this, right? I'm not trying to say whether I agree or disagree, because that's my personal opinion. I'm giving you all analysis in terms of why Governor Abbott has made an issue of this, because yes, I do. You can see where he's coming from, right? Whether you agree or disagree with that, that's not the point. The point is, do you see where he's coming from? Do you see why he believes that this is an issue? Not saying whether you agree or disagree with whether he has the authority to make it an issue, but do you understand why he believes that it's an issue, right? Because yeah, it does make logical sense that, why he would feel that that's an issue. So with that topic, let's kind of go through this, right? So if we're talking about border security, then in Texas, again, you of course you identify that issue, and of course also over here for let me move this over here because I can't really see. I'm going to move this the meeting here. So again, so like for federal government, again, you would identify and analyze either a civil liberty, civil rights, foreign or domestic, social slash economic policy issue or controversy. So that pretty much runs the gamut on anything, right? So for 2305, you could you see how like it's not it almost any political issue could be considered any of these, right? So again, so if we're going with the same issue, again, so you would research that issue, so to speak, right? So demonstrate why. I'm sorry, that's a typo. I need to fix that. This is a state or local issue and not a national issue. And then number two is it's the opposite, right? Demonstrate why this is a national issue and not a state issue. So um, maybe not is a little bit too strong of a word, but you could talk about why it's more a state or local issue or why it's more a national issue. Um, so if we're doing border security on the federal government side, you make the argument that it's a national issue because of what's in the Constitution. Because in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which deals with Congress, that is basically Congress's job description, where it lays out the responsibilities of Congress. That Congress has a responsibility to coin money. They have the responsibility to engage in interstate commerce, which is where Congress gets the ability to basically, pass laws and so on, right? Because almost anything can be considered interstate commerce. There's a specific section in there that talks about rule of naturalization. Rule of naturalization is a fancy term for immigration. That's what we call immigration today. That's what immigration is basically called today. So because of that rule of naturalization clause within Article 1, Section 8, that is what gives Congress the authority to pass immigration law. And so then immigration law has to be enforced by the executive branch because that they're supposed to execute that, right? That's why it's called the executive branch. They execute the laws passed by Congress. So that's why Border Patrol is under the executive branch under DHS, because that's their job, is to enforce the immigration and border security laws passed by Congress. Now, again, for Texas, again, going back to what I said earlier, right? Even though technically it is a national issue, you can make an argument that the state has a stake in this because of what I just mentioned, right? That border security does affect state and local, and it does affect people at the state and local level because they're not just crossing over to the United States, they're also crossing over into state and local areas, right? So if there is an issue where a state does not feel that the national government is doing a good enough job to uphold that constitutional responsibility, can the state intervene? Again, I'm not saying whether the state can or not. They obviously are, but I'm not on the Supreme Court to decide that, right? That's a constitutional question for the Supreme Court to decide. Now, you can make an argument that it logically makes sense, but just because it logically makes sense doesn't mean it's actually legal in terms of what the Constitution says. But again, and I'm not asking for you all to know 100% whether it's constitutional or not. Just make a logical argument. You're not on the Supreme Court either. So make a logical argument for why you believe it's constitutional, and then just formulate your argument, and then you're good, right? Again, it could be wrong. The Supreme Court could disagree with you, but you're making a logical argument for why. The Supreme Court has disagreed with other logical arguments before. There's plenty of things I disagree with the Supreme Court on, right? But my opinion doesn't really matter because I'm not on the Supreme Court, So just to keep that in mind. Okay, so let's go now to number 3. Explain how this is related to the origin development of the Texas Constitution, and then explain how this issue is related to the origin development of the constitutional democracy. So you see how it's pretty much the same here. Just again, we're focusing on Texas here, and then we're focusing on the federal government. So yeah, so I guess so for federal, of course, you would talk about how that, like I mentioned, that border security, of course, is related to the Constitution because, again, I mentioned before how It's mentioned in Article 1, Section 8 in terms of it, belonging to Congress's job description. Um, and of course, you can also go more into detail about how, like, maybe something you could also talk about in terms of how it relates to the U.S. Bill of Rights is if we wanted to talk more about border security, you could also go more into detail about some specific aspects of it. Like, here's a good one. You all are familiar with the Border Patrol checkpoints, right? Like, if again, and I'm just assuming that I don't know if everyone lives in the valley, but I'm assuming that a good majority of y'all do. But but you all familiar with those checkpoints, right? Like, let's say if you're going north on 281, and then before you get to Falfurrias, you have to go through the checkpoint, right? So, are those could the constitutional argument is, are those constitutional? Now, the Supreme Court has ruled on the constitutionality of that, but again, lots of people disagree with that. But you could try to make a constitutional argument, whether you agree or disagree with that, right? Does that have an impact on your Fourth Amendment search and seizure rights? Is a border checkpoint, is that a violation of illegal searches and seizures within the Fourth Amendment? Again, like I said, the Supreme Court doesn't believe so, but maybe, if you make a logical argument, hey, Supreme Court precedents have been overturned before, right? So again, just kind of think about that, as these could be some examples that you might think about. Um, and again, so if we're going back to Texas government, I'm not necessarily asking for you to go through the Texas Constitution word for word, because that's going to take weeks. For those of you who are in Texas government, you know what I'm talking about, right? The Texas Constitution is extremely lengthy. But maybe talk a little bit about how, you know, because Texas has had a history of being its own independent republic, that yeah, they're probably going to be a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? They're definitely going to not be passive when it comes to enforcement of law. You know what I mean? Like, they're definitely not just going to sit back because of the storied history of its of its political culture. Texas is not just going to sit back and just kind of let the national government just not do their job in terms of how Texas views it, right? Whether people disagree with that characterization, that's up for everyone. That's for debate. But if the state government feels that the national government is not holding its end of the bargain when it comes to border security, because of the storied political culture of Texas from Texas's rich history, it's not surprising. That's why, like, if you ask me, like, am I surprised that Texas has been very proactive on this issue? No, not at all. This falls clearly in line with Texas's history when it comes to being a former independent republic and fiercely defending its territory. Yeah, not surprised that this is something that Texas would do. Not surprised at all. So again, that's an example of how you can look at, you know, through the Texas history and the political culture of Texas to determine why Texas feels that it's important for them to help with border security, even if technically it's a federal responsibility. Number four, evaluate how different people in our society may be affected by the specific issue, policy, or political culture of Texas. What is the public's as well as certain groups like interest groups and political parties' opinion on the matter? And then over here for number four, evaluate how different people are. Again, so you see how, like, it's pretty much the same thing, right? Evaluate how different people in our society may be affected by the specific issue. What are the public's as well as certain groups like interest groups and political parties' opinion on the matter? So yeah, so for 2305, um, it would be better for you to look at like some national polling on the specific issue that you want to write about. So if we are talking about border security, then yeah, then a good place to look up would be like the Gallup, Pew Research. So again, I mentioned you were going to need some outside research here, right? So this is an example of how you can satisfy that outside research requirement by looking up polling information in regards to how Americans view the border security issue, right? And then for Texas, you can also do this as well. Uh, Maybe not necessarily through those national polls, but the Texas Politics Project also has some polls on this issue, as well as the Texas Tribune also has some polls on this. So those state newspapers and those organizations, they definitely do polling on specific issues in terms of how it relates to Texas, right? How do Texans view these issues? So they will go and poll Texans, and they'll ask them about these specific issues and ask them for their thoughts on that, right? So that's what I would recommend for y'all to do, is look up polling information and also look up The political parties as well. The political parties also have their viewpoints, and that's not going to be hard to figure out, right? It's going to be very easy to see where Republicans are on border security as well as where Democrats are, right? I think you can already kind of make a guesstimation in terms of where those political parties view those issues, right? So look up, articles on, the party platforms that the political parties have put forth, right? Like right now, we're going through we have the state conventions happening right now in Texas, right? In anticipation for the midterm elections coming up in November, right? So maybe look up the party platform information for the state political parties, right? For Texas government, uh, for the national government, for 2005, maybe you can look up the party platforms for the national conventions we had in 2004, I'm sorry, 2024, leading up to the presidential election we had in 2024, right? So those could be some areas. Interest groups also look up how does the ACLU view border security, the American Civil Liberties Union? Look up that. How do certain other organizations like maybe some of these institutions, right? Like the Brookings Institute or some of these other ones, right? Some of these think tanks, right? How do they view these particular political issues, right? So kind of look at that as well here. Number 5, identify the branch of government responsible for this, and if there's a part or there's part of any other branch that could also be implicated in the matter. Again, same thing over here for number 5 for federal. Identify the branch of the government responsible for that policy issued if there is part of any other branch that could also be implicated in the matter. So yeah, so for federal, we kind of answered this, right? And you probably have seen a trend that a lot of these questions get answered a little bit in some of these previous questions. Um, so yeah, and that's my job, is to go and look through the letters and make sure that 1 through 8 is answered there, right? So that's what I'll be doing when I grade them. I'll look to see, I'll look to find, 1 through 8 here. So, um, but yeah, so if we're going back to border security on the federal side, again, like we mentioned before, right? It's mentioned clearly in Article 1, Section 8 that Congress has the responsibility to pass rules of naturalization. And then, of course, so that would mean that you could make, so then for this one, you could say that the legislative branch would have the initial authority to ensure that the laws dealing with border security are passed. Then those laws have to be enforced by the executive branch. And so that's, of course, so the executive branch does the heavy lifting, right? That's why they hire all the Border Patrol agents, So, and that's a big reason why the executive branch is by far the largest of the 3 branches on the federal side. So you can also make an argument that the executive branch also has a lot of responsibility to enforce the immigration law. And then the courts also have responsibility because they have to ensure that the laws passed by Congress and then actions taken forth by the executive are constitutional, right? So there's the judicial review aspect of that, right? So you can make an argument that all 3 branches are involved, and maybe you could also talk about maybe which of those 3 branches has more involvement, right? So I did them in order because I do believe that it starts with the legislative branch, just like with anything in our government, at least it's supposed to, right? Anything within our government should start with the legislative branch in terms of Congress getting laws passed and then the executive branch enforcing them, and then the judicial branch ensuring that those laws and executive actions are constitutional. And then, like I said, for Texas again, so if we're looking at border security, right, that, you know, is it the legislative responsibility to fund Operation Lone Star? Are they the ones that, because right, obviously they're the ones that would have to authorize, when it comes to, and of course there's also the legislative budget board that also gets involved. Um, and then of course the nuts and bolts in terms of the actual enforcement is done by the executive branch, the Texas executive branch, um, through Governor Abbott, and also through, like, that would be like for the state troopers, right? That would be for DPS, right? So they're also the National Guard as well. Keep that in mind also, that the governor also has the authority to mobilize the National Guard to assist with it, right? Which the National Guard is technically, the National Guard is interesting because that's another example of federalism where, the sharing of power between the national government and the state government. So the National Guard, they are, that is the military, but the states have the authority to mobilize them. So again, another example of sharing that power there, right? So look at that. And then number 6 here, discuss your solution to the problem and develop an ethical strategy that can be used to help implement your solution. Same thing over here for federal, discuss your constitutional solution to the problem, develop an ethical strategy that can be used to help implement your policy solution. Um, so I guess, if we're going back to border security, like, um, I guess like on the Texas side, I guess you could make an argument that, I guess that's where you could chime in on, you know, should the state still be operating in terms of like, like who should take the lead on this? So should the state work independently from Border Patrol, or should they? Because right, that could be a good ethical strategy. Is that maybe there's issues with lack of, and this is true because this has been an issue where Border Patrol and DPS have been at odds with each other in terms of being able to work together. Um, so that could be something you could write about. Is that how could we figure out a way to to allow for this intergovernmental these intergovernmental relationships to work more smoothly, right? That could be a solution, right? Or maybe you could write that should the state even be involved at all, right? Again, it's up to you in terms of how you would write this if you pick this issue. And then on the federal side, again, you could make an argument, so if we're looking at maybe like, because I know a big controversy has been ICE and the tactics that they've used, right? So maybe you could write about, should ICE still be using those same types of, you know, uh, should they be using those same types of tactics that they've used before, or should there maybe be some more training or things like that? Again, it's up to you on terms of if you wanted to pick that topic, how you would resolve this 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 issue that you want to write about, and stuff like that. Or maybe like the conditions of the detention centers and the process in terms of how people being detained in the detention centers. Is that something that should there be some sort of oversight? Should Congress be more involved in using their oversight authority, stuff like that? So these are things you could write about as well. And then analyze how your action you may take regarding this may impact the election process, and discuss how the stance the identified leader you write to might impact how you vote in the next election. Same thing over here. Yes, I think it's right. Analyze how your action may take regarding this issue may impact the election process, and discuss how the congressional leaders' stance on the issue might impact how you vote in the next election. And so, like I said, this is perfect because this completing this assignment this year is perfect because we do have this major election coming up in November, right? So both on the Texas side and on the federal side, right? So that's why, right? That's why it would be important that whoever you write to, that you are a constituent of that individual, because you could make in the argument, and that kind of also goes into number 8, right? Conclude the letter with why this is a right and responsibility to address this letter to your identified Texas state, county, or local government elected leader, and then conclude the letter why this is a right and responsibility to address this letter to your representative in Congress. So 7 and 8 you can kind of combine them because your right is through the First Amendment, like I mentioned, the right to petition your government, the right to redress grievances, the right to get involved in this upcoming election and to make your voice heard. And that your voice is very important because your voice could be the determining factor whether these elected officials are able to get reelected or not. If the election comes down to one vote and that one vote was you and you voted a certain way because of this particular issue, that is a very powerful that is a powerful tool that you have, because you could definitely influence these elections coming up, and so through the actions that have been taken by the elected officials, and if you have some issues with how they're doing their job, this is the way to be able to to express that, and also to explain that their actions could very well cost them your vote, or could gain their your vote. Again, it depends on how you view this issue, right? So yes, this is in a nutshell what these assignments are going to be covering. So let me go ahead and just stop the share really quickly, I just want to make sure. Does anyone else have any other? Okay, so did that make sense in terms of me kind of explaining, like kind of giving you all a sample in terms of what I'm looking for? Does this make more sense in terms of like what I'm looking for within the okay, so I've got some thumbs up here. Okay, very good. So I just want to make sure that I haven't lost anyone. So yeah, so like I said, it is not a difficult assignment in terms of, I'm not asking for like a 10-page research paper. I'm not asking for 10 sources. I'm asking for a couple sources because you really can't do this without, doing some outside research. But I do understand that there's a lot of steps to this, and that's why I do get a lot of questions for this. So that's why I wanted to have this meeting for you all to help you all out in this, and so that way this would make a little bit more sense here. So let me go to the last part here. Just so that was probably what I would say is the most important aspect. the last thing that we just really need to cover really quickly is just the way the letter is going to be formatted, just because it's supposed to look like an actual letter. So again, these are some samples that you can click on to give you all some ideas in terms of um, of how the letter would look like. And so let me go to the letter organization here. And let me also talk about the length, because this is also a question I've gotten a lot of questions on. Okay, so the letter organization should be the same. 12 point Times New Roman. Okay, single space. This is also something that is an important distinction. And we'll also take some time to go over the rough draft here a bit, which is going to be due this Tuesday. So for the final submission, it's supposed to look like a letter. Okay, so that's why it has to be single space, because it's supposed to look like a letter. And as you can see here in the letter organization, again, it's supposed to look like a letter, right? Because it's again, you're simulating using your First Amendment right to contact an elected official. So start out by putting the date on the letter, then put the address. What for 2306, it'd be a text. It would be obviously, of course, a state or local elected official, and then for 2305, it'd be U.S. senator or U.S. representative. The address usually, I mean, and you can of course find their addresses right like on their official websites. So usually students tend to write to like their Washington, D.C. address for government 2305, and then for Austin for 2306, right? So if you're writing to Governor Abbott, just go ahead and write to his Austin address here. And then, of course, start the letter with the proper salutation. For example, dear Senator or Representative, Honorable Judge, Mayor. Same thing over here, dear Senator or Representative here for federal government. Make sure to clearly state the reason for your concern in your letter, because, again, since we are simulating this, let's say, the letter gets to the selected official. Let's say they've got other letters they got to get to, right? Provided that they do respond to letters, right? If they have to get to other letters, then they got to get through your letter very quickly, right? So you gotta make sure that you explain very quickly the purpose of this letter, so that way that'll catch their interest, and then they'll read through the entire things here, right? So that's why you got to get to, you gotta hook them in really quickly, so that way they can understand why you're writing to them and what it is that you're writing about. Make sure that you fulfill the criteria listed at the beginning of the handout, which is what we went over, 1 through 8. Make sure to point out your relationship to the elected official. Example, if you're the constituent. And again, that's why I recommend that you do write to your again, if it's in 2305, if you want to write to a House member, I would recommend that you write to your specific House member, or if you're writing to a member of the state legislature, that you write to your specific House, Texas House member or Texas Texas senator, because like I said before, right? If it's some person writing from, I don't know, like California, they're just going to be like, well, this person has no power over me. Like I don't represent anybody from California. It's going to go to the trash. I don't have time to deal with this. But if it's someone from their district, and if they are up for reelection this year, then yes, I'm not guaranteeing that they're going to give it the attention that it deserves, but there's a lot higher chance that they will, because especially if it's a very close election, which a lot of polling is showing that, a lot of these races are pretty close. I was reading earlier today that they've got a poll out where Ken Paxton and James Tallarico are tied. So absolutely, the smart thing to do is, to make sure that, if you're running for reelection, the smart thing to do is to make sure that you take the time to respond to every inquiry from constituents in your state or in your district, because that could be the difference as to whether you get reelected or not. I mean, that's the smart thing to do. We'll see if that plays out. And then, of course, at the end of the letter, place your name, signature, and address. I know some students in the past that kind of said, like, well, like maybe they don't feel comfortable like with their home address, and that's fine. You can put a fake address or don't put it, whatever. That's fine. It's like I said, I didn't create this, so again, it doesn't matter. It's whatever you feel most comfortable with. Just style it to where it's it looks like a professional letter, as we mentioned here in the format here. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Because again, we already went over the SLOs and also the core objectives and all that stuff. So I think we're pretty much good here. So does anyone else have any other questions on this or anything else that we covered today or needed to cover, or anything regarding the due dates, the late assignments, is there anything else that I can help you all with um, in terms of anything that we covered today, or if there's anything that we didn't cover today. Is there anything that you all have questions about? And do keep in mind that if you all would like to have another meeting, we can do that. Like these meetings, I'm available. Yes, I know this week I've had a lot of other meetings. I've been in meetings all day today. Uh, but that doesn't take away from my top priority, which is you all, because you all are the reason why I enjoy this career that I love so much. So I don't definitely always will make you all my top priority, as opposed to like some training about like first responders or something like that. I'm not trying to say that that's not important, but I have to remember what my main priority is, which is my students. So if you all need to meet again, or if there's anything else that or if it needs to be like a one-on-one, I can set up appointments and things like that. Of course, I have the office hours, during the day. Um, so again, I'm sorry about that, because I had to go to that meeting because they scheduled it during that time. But that's why I try to make up for that by meeting with you all in the evening, so that way. And I think I was gonna have the office hours in the evening from 7 to 8, but because I was still considering taking that graduate class, that's why I didn't put the office hours then, because like in summer two, I'm going to have it at 7, because that way I avoid all this potential meetings during the day. But it's because I thought I was going to do that graduate class, and ultimately I didn't end up doing. But then it was too late for me to go and change it in the syllabus, so I'm just kind of stuck with that. But it's fine. Let's see. Giselle says I'm good. Thank you for covering it. Okay, absolutely, you're welcome. That's what I'm here for. So, but like I said, just to kind of just to reiterate. So does everyone feel okay with? Does everyone feel better about working on the final project? Alice says, I understood. Thank you, Professor, for your time and for hope. Yeah, it's been really tough. Yeah, and having all these meetings have not helped with my health and all that. So, but yeah, I am doing better now. Thankfully, my throat's a little bit sore still, but I am doing a little bit better. Oh, let's also go over the rough draft really quickly. We didn't do that yet. So let's go to the rough draft really quickly, because I do want to just kind of explain how that works. Let me go to the rough draft really quickly here. So let me go. And again, I don't have to show both federal and Texas because it's the same. Or for the most part, it's the same. Let me see. Um, okay, so let me just show. Let me share the screen with you all really quickly. So, okay, so for the rough draft here. Okay, so again, it's basically you have to answer these 3 questions. I can fine. We'll go to Texas as well. So for federal, you just have to answer these 3 questions, right? So this is basically summarizing what you're going to be, this is basically a quick summary of what the final project is going to look like for the final submission. So this basically summarizes, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to submit a full page double space. So do keep in mind that this one is double space. The final project is single space, but this one's double space because this isn't a letter. This is just an essay. So what you're going to do, so for federal, what the 3 questions that you're going to answer is the name of the U.S. Senator or House member that represents Texas that you'll be writing to, the federal national issue that you were writing about, and the constitutional and ethical solution to your federal/national issue. And then let me go now to Texas government really quickly. So that way you all will see it's basically the same thing here. Let's see. I passed it here. Sorry about that. Okay, so for Texas, again, please submit a full-page double-spaced rough draft for your signature on the final project. Please make sure that you answer these 3 questions. Number 1, the name of the Texas state or local elected official that you'll be writing to. Number 2, the state or local issue that you're writing about. And then 3, the constitutional and ethical solution to your state/local issue. So like I said, you're basically going to be summarizing what you're going to be completing in the signature assignment. You're going to be summarizing this here. Now, also keep in mind that, let's say, because I have seen this before. So let's say there's a situation where, like, let's say you come up with a solution, you write it in the rough draft, and then once you do more research, you realize, you know what? I think I have a better solution. I think I want to do something a little bit different. That's fine. It doesn't have to be the same solution that you have here, because, and in some cases, I might not even expect for it to be the same solution, because maybe you haven't done your research yet. Once you do your research, then obviously it could very well be something different, because maybe once you did more research, you realize, you know what? No, that solution, no, that's probably not even constitutional. Like, no, I'm going to do, let me think of something else here. Let me introduce something else here. That's totally fine. That is completely fine. So don't feel like you have to be committed to the solution if after you research, then you change it up. That's totally fine. That's not a problem at all. Okay, so does this make sense in terms of what the rough draft is going to be? It's just going to be a full page double space. Oh, let me also mention that for the final project, it has to be 1,000 words. I think, yeah, it is mentioned in there. So it's 1,000 words for the final submission, not for the rough draft. The rough draft is just the rough draft is what is a one page double space? It's probably maybe like 250 words or something, 300 maybe something like that. So right, just as long as it's because you don't have to, because again, you don't have to go as much detail in the rough draft. For the final submission, you do. So that has to be at least 1,000 words, and I will check the word count on that, just like I check the word count for. So that is a very important point. I do need to mention that I do check the word count for the final submissions, just like I check the word count for the discussions. So make sure that when you're writing it on Word, make sure that you reach that 1,000 word minimum, so that way you won't get marked off. Because just like you get marked off in the discussion if you don't do the 300, I'm sorry, the 200 for the initial and the 100 for the two responses, you will get docked if you don't meet the 1,000 word limit. So please make sure that you also are checking that word limit. I did have an issue with that last semester where a lot of students just completely ignored that, and so I've had to make that more of an emphasis. So I will make that more of an emphasis, this semester here. So, um, okay. So does anyone else have any other questions or anything before we end for today? I know I've kept you all a little bit longer than we would have liked, but it was important that we covered everything that we needed to. So, does anyone else have anything else? And like I said, if you all feel like we need to have another meeting, that's totally fine. Whether it's for this or anything else. I know we covered a lot of things like end of semester stuff. There may be some more things that may come up here. But bottom line, guys, again, like I said, I understand 5 weeks is very brutal. I am not a fan of these classes in general. I'm not a fan of teaching them. I'm not a fan of taking them. I do not like the 5 week format. I do like the money that I make from teaching the 5 week format, but I don't like how like if it was up to me, I would prefer for these classes to last from June all the way to August. Like the way the summer 3 is, like I would prefer that. Like instead of having to do four classes from June to July and then one from July to August, I'd rather do five from June to August. That's so much better. But unfortunately, that's not the way they assign it, so I really can't do anything about that. But the reason why I say that is because I'm just trying to explain that I understand that this is very difficult. I understand. I do understand. Like I said, I had to drop that 5 week class in Laredo because I just wasn't going to be able to do it. So I understand how difficult it is to do these 5 classes, these 5 week classes. I do understand that. So just hang in there, get everything completed. Everything will be all right. As I've mentioned before, nobody has ever failed my class if they didn't do their work. The only students that have failed my class are ones who miss assignments. So as long as you don't miss assignments, then you'll be okay. If you're late on assignments, that might, I don't know if you'll get the A, but for sure you won't fail if you complete your assignments. Priscilla, if we can have another meeting just to, okay. Yes, we can definitely have one. Um, so when you say refresh, what do you mean by that? Is there anything specific that you would need a refresher on,
Uh,
or
just maybe like right now on the rough draft or any
I
assignments
see.
that, we can make up, like you said,
Oh,
for
okay.
extra credit and stuff like
I
that.
see what you mean. I see what you mean. You would like kind of like an end of semester checkup. Like, okay,
Yeah,
let's
like
see
a
where we're
checkoff
at.
list.
Yeah.
Yeah, something
Okay,
like that.
that's good. That's actually a really good idea. I like that. Yes, we can do that. Okay, because the reason why I wanted clarification is because since we're all here, I would like to see if maybe we can schedule that. Let's see. We could, okay, so what would be a good day for you all? Um, I get, okay, because I have another question. So, and I'm just thinking out loud, and I see what you all think about my analysis here. So I'm thinking that it might be best to have that meeting before finals week starts, because finals week is going to get really hectic and I'm sure some of y'all are taking other classes, right? So it might be hard to meet during finals week. So what about if we met next Thursday, the 25th, which is right before finals week starts? That's what I'm thinking. Does anyone disagree with that? Does anyone feel that that's too early, that you all want to meet during finals week? I'm just explaining why I think the 25th would be better than maybe meeting on the 29th or the 30th, because then we're already in finals week and that might be difficult for us to meet. So yeah, it seems like everyone's kind of in agreement on this, because yeah, I think that we need to meet before finals week starts, and the 25th is the last day before, because then the 26th, SEC doesn't have, they have off. So yeah, I think the 25th would be good. That way and it certainly won't be as long as this meeting. Like, we can just kind of do a recap of what we have left. Um, Probably also we could do a refresher on the final project as well, and just kind of go over everything that we still have due. And I will also make sure that I get everything graded before that. Like, I've tried my best to try to get, you all have noticed, right? I've tried my best to get the grades back to you all as soon as possible, because I know that, and I'll be honest with you, I have not been good about that in the past. Like maybe like 3 years ago, I was one of those professors that didn't grade things until the end of the semester. I'm being completely honest with you. That was something that was a big issue with me. I was not good at grading things quickly. Um, but I have really worked on that. I've really, really redevoted myself to getting things graded as quickly as possible. So I will make sure that, because I know there's still a couple of the second discussion. I'm gonna get through that again. There was a lot of meetings this week. Last week I had a lot more free time. This week was a lot more hectic. Um, but yeah, I'll make sure that I get the rest of the second unit discussion, and then I'll have the third unit discussion is going to be due next Tuesday. So that on Wednesday I'll make sure that I get all that graded. So that way it's ready before we meet on Thursday. So would you be able to talk about the final and what more or less it would be? Okay, so yes, I can certainly talk about that right now, and also we can talk about that next week. Yeah, the final is not cumulative. It's just going to be the last chapter. So for like 2306, it would be like, the budget chapter, and then local government, and then for 2305, it would be civil rights, domestic foreign policy. So yeah, it's not cumulative. It's just going to be the last couple of chapters. I think you all are aware that the tests are open book, open note, right? I think I did make that clear to you all. So they are, you can use your book and your notes, and it shouldn't be flagging you all. I don't think there's been any issues with AutoLock flagging you all. So, and if there is, please let me know so I can take care of that. But yes, I think I have communicated that. So yeah, so the same thing. Final's gonna be open book, open note. Um, Let me also mention that the absolute last day that I can accept late assignments is going to be Friday, July 3rd. The official last day of summer one is Thursday, July 2nd. I will accept assignments until Friday, July 3rd, because I am going to need the weekend to, the 4th of July is going to be that weekend. Like, really, they're going to make grades due that weekend. That's brutal. But it is what it is. What can I do? But yeah, so and it's America's 250th anniversary. Like, really, like, I'm gonna be stuck, at home grading. Okay, that's fine. It is what it is. Um, I guess it's fine. I get to work from home during the summer, so I guess it's a small price to pay. But anyway, yeah. So please make sure that if there's anything like because I can't be grading things like on the 4th or the 5th, because I have to submit final grades to STC. Like, I have to submit final grades on the 6th. So I can't be grading individual things, because I have to make sure that the grades are finalized and that they are entered correctly. And that's also, like I mentioned before, that what I do is I go through every student and I make sure that I didn't miss anything. Like, if there is a test that was submitted. Now, again, I do expect for you all to let me know if you submit a test, and it was already marked as a 0, so I can go back and redo it. But I will still go do those checks. Like, I try to make sure that I don't leave any stone unturned. Um, because I don't want for students to then complain later on. And I don't do it for that, but I do it because it's the right thing to do. But it's also good to, like, not worry about, like, oh, like, did I miss something? And then the students are going to go complain to the chair and stuff like that. So it's best just to make sure that that gets taken care of. So I do that for every student. So just yeah, but yeah, the third, and yeah, and I know I'm getting into things that we would talk about in the next meeting, but yes, the I'm not, July 3rd, that'll be the last day that I will accept any late assignments. Okay. So, because I have to get those final grades finalized. So, okay. Is there anything else that you all have questions about or anything that I can assist you all with? And we wouldn't have been able to have these meetings if I had to go do class. Well, we could have, but they would have had to have been on the weekends. So yeah, we still could have met, but it would have been like on a Friday. So, but I guess we could have made that work. So, but no, there were other things I had to do this semester. So, okay, all right. Well, then let me go ahead and stop the recording here, which I completely forgot that I still had it going. Okay, and I will upload this one as well as the original one that I needed to upload as well. So sorry about that. Okay, let me go ahead and stop recording here. Okay. All right.